Everyone thinks that Thragg vs Superman would be an epic battle between two of the most powerful beings in their universes, but it's not even close. And I'm gonna break down every reason why this fight is over before the loser even knows what hit him, starting with their backgrounds, because where these powerhouses come from shapes everything. Let's talk about the Krypton legend first. What exactly are Superman's powers? We know the man flies around saving lives, but what exactly makes him a formidable opponent in combat?
He has the power to wipe out the entire human race, and if we believe there's even a 1% chance that he is our enemy, we have to take it as an absolute certainty.
But he is not our enemy.
Not today.
Well, for starters, Superman obviously has the power of flight. He's able to travel from place to place within insanely short periods of time and react quickly to all threats, arriving at the scene of a crime in a matter of seconds, giving villains little time to react. Superman's powers of flight open up a whole new world of combat strategy. Think about the possibilities. The ability to fly makes Superman essentially a human fighter plane, or if needed, a stealthy reconnaissance drone. And if that wasn't enough, on top of his prowess for aerial maneuver, Superman's other powers include superhuman strength, the ability to change and modify his bodily appearance, X-ray vision, superhuman healing, and hypnosis. Think back to the way Bruce Lee would beat up people in movies back in the day. That's exactly the scene that usually unfolds when villains try to test the limits of Superman's mercy. His ridiculously high strength not only means that a single punch of his would be enough to put the average man in a coma, it also makes him a ridiculously hardy individual, with a tolerance for pain that exceeds the average man by miles.
My parents taught me to hone my senses on focus on just what I wanted to see, and it hurts, doesn't it?
I mean, try tickling him with a nuke and he probably would come out unharmed with a smile on his face. I mean, this is the guy whose blood quite literally has magical properties and is able to heal those who are fortunate enough to somehow obtain even a small dosage of it. This is the guy that can literally see through walls with his bare eyes, leaving enemies with nowhere to hide. Let's just put it this way. If you think a man like Conor McGregor is scary, well, he is. But compared to Superman, he's a cockroach trying to intimidate a snow leopard. Superman would wipe the floor with the world's most decorated fighters and scoff in the face of knives and guns. It's in his name, and more often than not, those who dare to go against him end up in extremely undesirable circumstances.
We had Luther on this show many times. Little did we know he was a traitor. Buffoonishly.
Sounds unstoppable, right? But here's the thing about god tier power levels. When your opponent has them too, those advantages vanish. Keep that in mind. I think we all know about Superman's physical prowess, his competence at unarmed combat, but an aspect of Superman that's often overlooked is the insanity of his mental powers. While his body might be worthy of CIA experimentation, equally worthy of Marvel is the damn near psychic abilities that are contained in the brain of his, I mean, we all know he can shoot laser beams from his eyes, but how many of you thought twice about his eerie ability to hypnotize others? We're not talking basic hypnosis.
What do you know about the hypnoblasts? They make his face look different in your brain when he wears them so that you don't know who he is.
Like those clips where magicians are able to put people to sleep. We're talking insane levels of hypnosis, like being able to erase the memory of an incident completely from the minds of people, or being able to make villains obey his commands and do his bidding as they lose control over their own bodies. I mean, come on, this is completely absurd. You're telling me this is the man you want to fight? He's also able to disorientate and confuse enemies by projecting his voice across extremely long distances. A villain could hear his voice beckoning as if he was right behind him, but in actuality, Superman's miles away.
Crypto, take me home.
Through this ability, villains end up confused, disorientated, and feeling as if they themselves have gone crazy. It is within this state of utter confusion that Superman is able to strike, defeating the enemy through the perfect union of the powers of his body and mind. Now, with all these insane powers, you'd think Superman has this fight locked down, but there's something about his character that completely flips the script, and it's not what you think. It's worth mentioning that although Superman, in the original Siegel and Shuster stories, was portrayed as a rough and weathered gangster, the Superman we all know and love today is far from who he was back in those early comic days. He's since become far more polished, far less gritty, and far more of a dreamer. I mean, just think about his role in society and the absolute love with which he plays his role. Superman has, to the extent of our knowledge, never received any personal or financial reward for his acts. He even conceals his identity as Clark Kent and expresses great worry on the occasions when someone finds out his true identity. Superman isn't saving lives for a check or for a fame that he will never receive. Superman today represents the archetype of he who gives billions without asking for a penny in return.
What's the S stand for?
It's not an S. On my world, it means hope.
Well, here it's an S. How about Sir?
He's the human embodiment of altruism, risking his life, putting everything he has up for sacrifice for people he'll never meet again. He's a protector of the innocent, a friend to all humans, and this gray symbol of a compassion that runs selflessly, whereby his love for all others far outweighs his concern for his own safety. No doubt, if it ever came to that and it was really necessary, without even blinking an eye, Superman would give up his life to save a stranger. There's a reason why he's often being used to describe the ideal man. His beauty lies not only in his likability, but his willingness to defy our notions of cost and benefit and give it all up for nothing in return.
Without Superman, can there be a Justice League?
How many battles did we win simply because he was there?
I used to be able to goof around so much because I knew Superman had my back.
He represents, to so many, a dreamer so idealistic that instead of using his powers for personal gain, like the majority of people would have done, he chose to use them to pursue his vision of a kinder world, even when it seems like a losing battle. This is a man who, after he first took the life of a supervillain, felt so regretful that he took a strict vow to, from then on, never take the life of another, no matter how tough it got. He's the human embodiment of mercy, of seeing the good in the most evil, twisted and corrupted of souls, and of absolute love for a species abiding on a planet that considers him alien. This world's been tough to Superman. He lost his planet, his parents, every single of his kind are not extinct. Such optimism in the face of adversity, this kindness and selfishness, that's exactly what, to generations of teenagers, Superman has represented and continues to represent.
The symbol of the House of El means hope. Embodied within that hope is the fundamental belief in the potential of every person to be a force for good.
Remember this idealism, because when we get to why Thragg might actually win, this compassion becomes his Achilles heel. But first, let's talk about the dictator himself, Thragg. I've earned my command. I deserve to lead. I'm what our people need. I don't care what is decreed. You have earned nothing. All you deserve is death. Those were the very words spoken by supervillain Thragg to his nemesis Omni-Man as Thragg attempted to put Omni-Man's life to a premature close, ending him once and for all in defense of Thragg's authoritarian dictatorship over the Viltrumite population. In my view, and this sentiment is probably shared by many fellow fans, with regards to who is the greatest supervillain of all time, Dr. Doom would take the title, with Thragg being a close second. I mean, need we even speak about Thragg and his ruthlessness? The steely iron with which he ruled over the Viltrumites, stopping at no ends to fulfill his visions, crushing and putting to death all those who dare to disobey?
In order for our people to reach their full potential, we had to remove the weak, but what emerged was unstoppable.
Thragg, in many ways, could be seen as the comic book equivalent of an authoritarian dictator, one who believed with irreprehensible conviction in their own competence and vision, one who ruled rather than lead, and cared not at whose expense his plans would succeed. Thragg, in many ways, is comparable to a Viltrumite Gaddafi, giving his subjects only two choices, loyalty or death. Thragg was and is one of the most legendary antagonists the comic book world has and probably will ever see. As the leader of the Viltrumite Empire, Thragg's rule was characterized by a military-like utility, where every notion of ethics and morality were thrown out the window in favor of his pursuits and bloodthirsty conquests. When Thragg was a youngster, he slaughtered, as a practically invincible fighter on one side of the Civil War, thousands of weaker Viltrumites, believing the weak to be unworthy of life. Thragg punished countless dissidents with death, and the victims of his brutal rule include his very own son.
You abandon your mission to subjugate Earth. Desertion! Unapproved breeding with an inferior species.
And what's worse than a dictator? A dictator who is literally the strongest Viltrumite in all of recorded history. One who is practically invincible and lives life as if it were a game he has all the cheat codes to. Thragg, just like Superman, has extraordinary powers and would turn the average man to toast in a matter of seconds in armed or unarmed combat. Thragg's powers include decelerated aging, whereby Thragg's lifespan runs ridiculously long, with his powers and physical condition deteriorating at a ridiculously low rate. In fact, as time goes on, it seems that instead of degeneration, Thragg seems to grow in strength and power, becoming more and more lethal to any opponent standing in his way. Because of this, Thragg can play the long game. After all, his decelerated aging, paired with his vindictive nature, completely eliminates any chance for an enemy to try his hand at the waiting game. To Thragg, decades of waiting would pass in the blink of an eye, within which he would have grown infinitely stronger and more experienced. As the saying goes, you can run, but you can't hide, and Thragg certainly is not a man that can be triumphed by time. In addition, Thragg, like Superman, is able to fly.
Earth's gravity is weaker, yet its atmosphere is more nourishing. You've grown stronger here than I ever could have imagined. The only way to know how strong is to keep testing your limits.
One aspect of this flight that is unique to Thragg is his ability not just to fly as means of transport, but to levitate above the air in a controlled manner. In a strange world of superheroes, many are able to soar through the air at lightning speed, but not many are able to nimbly levitate a meter or two above the ground, or hover slightly in an act aimed to disorient the enemy.
We can freely move ourselves through physical space. That's how we fly. So we don't have to pivot on our feet and push off the ground. We can literally push off anything. We can create our own leverage.
Thragg has insane control over his flight powers, whereby a transition from flight to sprint can be easily carried out in a fraction of a second. Thragg also has superhuman strength, superhuman speed, insanely sharp senses, an ability to heal himself in the unlikely event that he is wounded, and even power to not just survive, but thrive for extended periods of time in environments absent of oxygen. In short, Thragg's powers are insane, and are the reason he was able to rise to the top of the ranks, ruling with an iron fist over the Viltrumite population. So, we've got a ruthless dictator versus a Boy Scout. Already, you can see the mismatch in mindset. But does Thragg's brutality actually translate to combat advantage? Let's look at his powers and find out. And this is where most people get this matchup completely wrong. In some areas, clearly, Superman has an advantage over Thragg. I know that just seconds ago, I was talking about how ridiculously overpowered Thragg is, but no good villain is without his or her weakness. It's what makes stories interesting. And one of the major gaps in Thragg's proverbial armor is the fact that he's a Viltrumite. This alien species, however powerful, still have biological limitations, one of them being their ears. Yeah, you heard me right. The Viltrumite biology is such that they have extremely sensitive ears. This is what allows Thragg and other Viltrumites to fly at ridiculously high speeds. Ironically though, the extreme sensitivity of their ears can also be used against them. Sound at specific frequencies can be used as an excruciating and even lethal weapon against Viltrumites. With the right technology, or a few tech-savvy friends, Superman could beat Thragg without even landing a single blow by developing a machine that could cause Thragg's eardrums to reverberate with unbearable pain. Even more advantageous to Superman is the fact that Viltrumites are even vulnerable to paralysis if exposed to sound of specific frequencies. Now, as the strongest of all Viltrumites, Thragg obviously is different from other Viltrumites, so it's worth noting that we are unsure of the extent to which these frequencies actually have an impact on him.
Remember that giant lobster you tangled with in Atlantis? Turns out we can transmit it to your earpiece, the one we implanted when you were in our hospital, the one too deep to reach.
But we know for a fact, referencing past events, that these frequencies do have a significant impact on other Viltrumites of great power and competence. So it's hard to believe that Thragg would be able to remain totally unaffected by something which would render the powers of any other Viltrumite being. Perhaps to Thragg, these frequencies would be more so hindrances, impairing him from performing at optimal capacity and hindering only some of his powers. Nevertheless, in this aspect, Superman has a clear advantage over Thragg. The same sounds that have the potential to crush the battle-hardened Viltrumites have no negative impact on Superman himself, so if it were possible for Superman to get his hands somehow on a device that produced such frequencies, Thragg and his gang of Viltrumites would have their abilities significantly impaired.
Bruce, please, I was wrong. You have to listen to me. You don't understand. There's no time. I understand.
Ironically, one of Superman's greatest chances of beating Thragg might be in a magical plant. I'm serious. Thragg, despite having reached damn near demigod status, might be able to be beaten by a well-thought-out combination of Superman's powers and weapons infused with a plant known as the Klaxis plant. The Klaxis plant is a plant that we know is poisonous to Viltrumites, and Thragg is no exception. The Klaxis plant just might be one of the Viltrumites' few weaknesses. It, by some unknown force of nature, is able to eat away at the powers of Viltrumites should a Viltrumite have the ill fortune of being exposed to contact with the plant. A Viltrumite like Thragg might be mighty, if Superman is somehow able to get his hands on a large quantity of the plant and infuse weapons with the plant's essence, he might be able to weaken Thragg to the point where he's able to beat Thragg in hand-to-hand combat.
Element Man has been called into service for a specific purpose. He can metamorphose into any known substance, even substances foreign to this planet.
We know from experience that the Viltrumites themselves seriously fear the Klaxis plant. I mean, they took the effort to infest the plant on which Klaxis plants grow in the hopes of exterminating this dangerous species of vegetation. And it was none other than Omni-Man himself who actually gifted extracts of the plant to the coalition of planets to be used against the Viltrumites. We know this plant works, and we already know that Superman has powers far greater than the average man, or even the average Viltrumite. Whether or not those skills on their own are sufficient to overpower Thragg is contentious, but with the help of a little resource resourcefulness with a little cunning wit sprinkled in, Superman just might be able to turn the tables and defeat Thragg, upsetting his undefeated record. The best part, Superman would be able to maintain his solemn vow not to take the life of another. Through the usage of such biological means, excruciating pain would be able to be induced on Thragg, but none of these two methods would, in all likelihood, have a severe enough effect on Thragg to kill him. No matter how strong or powerful Thragg may be, Superman just needs to remember one thing: he's a mortal just like anyone else, and it takes but a single candle to set the mighty fortress ablaze.
I'm as human as anyone. I love, I get scared, I screw up all the time, but that is being human, and that's my greatest strength.
Okay, so now that we've established Superman's clear advantage over Thragg, the answer to who would win a fight between the two of them is obvious, isn't it? Superman would crush Thragg, handing Thragg the first loss of his career, ending his supervillain career in humiliating fashion. Or would he? See, I've mentioned that in some aspects Superman has a clear advantage over Thragg, but get this, in other aspects, Thragg is clearly superior to Superman, likewise giving Thragg an advantage over Superman. So let's not make our verdict so quickly and give our favorite supervillain Thragg a chance to plead his case. You never know, he just might have a fighting chance against Superman and pull off the greatest comeback in history. Remember earlier in the video when I mentioned that Superman is an idealist? I said that Superman was compassionate, kind, and benevolent. He represents hope, courage, and most importantly, a selfless desire to protect the lives of all in pursuit of a better, safer world. Remember that? Well, what if I told you that this isn't a strength? See, when facing a supervillain of Thragg status, Superman's idealism actually makes him susceptible to getting carried with unrealistic ideals, ignoring what is and isn't pragmatic. Superman may have dreams of a better world, but does he truly have the means to execute his vision? And is he willing to compromise his ideals for what realistically will give him an edge over Thragg?
Did it hurt you?
You know, they can't. I wanted to hit that kid. I wanted to hit him so bad.
I know you did. And you just have to decide what kind of man you want to grow up to be, Clark.
I don't think so. Superman, in classic Superman fashion, gets in the way of his full potential as a superhero because of his unrealistic ideals. I mean, the man has literally vowed not to take the life of another. How on earth is he going to deal with Thragg then? It's unlikely that Superman would be able to ever land a final defeat over Thragg without killing him. Sure, he might win him in a fight, but Thragg could just get up and try again another day. And unlike Superman, Thragg would finish the job by whatever means necessary, ending our favorite superhero without a moment's hesitation. This unwillingness to kill Thragg really is a major weakness for Superman. Thragg essentially is able to continuously make attempts to kill Superman. If he succeeds in doing so even once, well, Superman can bid this beautiful world sayonara. Superman's also a sentimental dude. He loves his friends and family a little too much, making him vulnerable to being manipulated by Thragg emotionally. I mean, when Thragg starts making threats against Superman's family and friends, Superman is bound to have his judgment clouded. His tremendous affection for family and friends truly makes him susceptible to manipulation.
Where has he hit me? Where is the codex? You think you can threaten my mother?
Apart from that, there's another thing that's a total game changer and just might give Thragg the victory he's looking for. It's his dictator-like ruthlessness, his authoritarian efficiency, his lack of any ethical considerations. The man kills without even thinking twice and previously crushed all dissidents among the Viltrumites, ensuring the entire population remained completely loyal to him. A man as heartless as Thragg would blow up cities and burn villages just to get what he wants. Against Superman, Thragg doesn't have the liability of ethical concerns. He'll pounce without thinking twice and bask in the glory of his cruelty. Not to mention that Thragg literally commands the entire Viltrumite population, acting as their supreme leader. With a single word from Thragg's mouth, Superman would find entire armies of Viltrumites charging at him. Each soldier in that army would like nothing more than to die for his beloved leader of the Empire. All dissidents among them would have been executed by Thragg, and the Viltrumites who remain are hence fiercely loyal to Thragg.
Our most trusted officers were each given a planet to weaken by themselves. I was one of those lucky few.
If Superman wants to capture the leader, he'll have to fight off an army, and let me tell you, the Viltrumites are not ones to play around when it comes to warfare. The last thing that gives Thragg a fighting chance against Superman is this. While Superman in all likelihood has far more powers than Thragg, how many of those powers would actually work on a villain of Thragg's caliber is actually dubious. Powers like X-ray vision, the ability to talk over long distances, psychic abilities, or enhanced leaping, all great against weaker villains, but would a war-hardened veteran really be all that effective unaffected by such superpowers? I mean, Thragg isn't some small-town superhero. This is literally the strongest Viltrumite in all of recorded history. Against men, no doubt these powers would come in handy, but I doubt they would do much harm to Thragg. Even Superman's strongest powers like superhuman strength, superhuman speed, and the ability to fly are powers shared by Thragg himself, meaning that Superman's possession of these powers may not give him the advantage he's used to against lower-level villains. Thragg can fly just like Superman can, and both Thragg and Superman can punch through walls as if they're Kit Kat bars. Without this advantage, perhaps Thragg does stand a chance at holding his own against Superman. When all is said and all is done, does anyone want to guess who would win? Both have an advantage, but the title of this video was clear that this would not be a close fight, and there would be a clear winner. Among the two, who would it be? Before I reveal the answer, go ahead and type your guess out in the comment section and why you think he would win over the other. After much research and honestly days of thought, I've come to this final conclusion. Thragg would win Superman by a landslide, and it isn't even close. If you enjoyed this video and want to see why Battle Beast vs Superman isn't close, click now.